Hey everybody, I'm Jack Rita from Future Pastimes, and I'm the designer of The Adventures of Conan, which is an upcoming game from Gale Force 9. And one of the things that is in the game is something called the encounter cards. And I'm going to give you a preview of the encounter cards and how they work. First, we'll talk about how the encounter phase is unlocked. So on the board, there is something called the encounter track, and it has 4 spaces here with one or more symbols on it. And in the main phase of the game, all the players are going to roll their dice, and they're going to take actions based on the symbols that they have rolled. But one of the actions that they can take is to take a rolled symbol and place that one on a corresponding symbol of the encounter track. So this warrior here could go on this space. It could also go on this one, which can be a warrior or a move. So you could use that one symbol to cover up both of those on this space of the encounter track. Now, depending on the number of players in the game is how many dice it's going to take. So if it's a 3-player game, it's going to take 3 dice on this track to unlock the encounters. Although even in a 3-player game, all 4 spaces can be filled, and we'll talk about the ramifications of that when it happens. So there's always going to be 3 of these encounter cards face up. And these are going to be, it's mostly monsters, but there are other baddies that Conan may have to tangle with in the course of his adventures. And at the end of the main phase, if you have indeed unlocked the encounter cards, you're then going to look at the cards and determine which of them even apply to where Conan is. So they're going to have a couple of different categories here. So this one here is Revenants. So what we're looking at to determine whether or not Conan is going to face them is you're going to look in the top right corner, and that's going to be the information that explains how that card corresponds to his location. So here we have, it's a wealthy kingdom, and those are the kingdoms on the map that are purple. So if I can find one here, there you go. So here's an example, and that is Ophir. So if Conan is in Ophir, he is in a wealthy kingdom, which also has the purple here on the borders of the card. So if encounters are unlocked, he is going to have to face those revenants. On the opposite corner is going to be the reward for whoever does defeat this encounter. So in this case, it's going to be 2 victory points. Down at the bottom here under the art, we have the symbols that are required to defeat the revenant. So it's going to be 4 different symbols here. So you're going to need a sorcery, you're going to need a thief result, and then you're going to need a warrior. And in this case, it can be either a warrior or a scry. So it's got a little line through it, so one or the other. But notice how these 2 symbols here are orangish yellow, and they're in the diamonds where the others are in the circles. This corresponds to when Conan is the one making the roll. So Conan has a couple of different types of dice, and his primary dice are these orange dice. And whenever an encounter card has this diamondy, I say orange, it's a little more yellow, it might be more orange when the final print is done. We'll see. But if it has these, that means when Conan makes his roll, he has to roll those symbols on these dice. Now, he's got the other dice as well. These are the sort of general or secondary dice on there. But if he has rolled the symbol that he needs on this die, but it's for one of these, he can't use that die. So it's a further restriction for Conan. Now, the way it'll work is Conan is going to be rolling first. So he'll roll all the dice that he can, and he'll apply all of the rolled successes to this encounter. But if it is not all of the symbols that he needs, then the next player in turn order will roll all of their available dice, and they will try to complete the encounter. So let's say that Conan does roll a warrior here, and he gets a thief, but he doesn't get the sorcery, and he doesn't get this other one. So those 2 successes will be applied. So the next player just needs a sorcery, and then either a warrior or a scry. And if they're not successful, then if there's a 3rd or 4th player, then the next player will have a chance to try to complete it. If somebody does complete it, then everyone who went before them and failed will suffer the consequences. So in this case, it's a wound. And if you are wounded, you're going to take one of your active or available dice and you're going to set it aside for the rest of the round. You will not be able to use it. After the encounter phase is the adventure phase, which is the only other thing you're really going to need your dice for, but that's a big way to score points. So fewer dice means you are less likely to get points in that adventure, or maybe even less likely to complete the adventure if you're Conan. So these can be a big deal, and that is why unlocking the encounters can be very important for the foes, even for the ally if you have a 3 or 4 player game. But there are going to be times when even Conan wants to unlock the encounters. So let's go back to, we're talking about the dice here. Now, when the encounters are unlocked because you have placed enough, the minimum required number of dice, so in a 2-player game, it's got to be two dice up there or more. 3-player, it's got to be 3, and a 4-player, all 4 slots have to be filled. But for each one that is filled with a die belonging to a foe, when it's time to roll for the encounters, Conan and an ally have to set aside a die of their choice from those that they've got available. And so they're rolling with fewer dice. So this is even more complicated for Conan and for an ally, the more dice that the foe puts up there. So Conan may want to put dice up there just to block the foes from putting dice up there, even if it means he's going to have to face those encounters. Now, there's a couple of things about that. One, of course, is if Conan is not in a kingdom that corresponds to any of these encounters, then he has really nothing to worry about. So I'll give you a couple more examples. So here we have a frost giant. Now, this one has a snowflake, and so that corresponds to some of these northern kingdoms. So you can see right here, this is Nordheim. It's got the snowflake. So Conan would need to be in Nordheim or Pictland or Samaria or Hyperborea at the end of the main phase. And if so, yes, he's going to be fighting a frost giant. But if he's down in Stygia or Ophir, doesn't have to worry about the frost giant. But then there are these cards like the giant spider that says any. So it doesn't matter where Conan is. If the encounters are unlocked, he will be fighting the giant spider. Now let's say that he is in he ends the main phase in a savage kingdom, and this is one of the face-up cards, and the spiders there as well. He'll have to face them both, and it'll be from left to right. So if this is the first card that's left, he'll fight against the carrion men first, and then win or lose, then he's going to be fighting the giant spider. And if he is unsuccessful against the carrion men and he's wounded, then he's going to be less likely to be able to face the giant spider. So can you imagine Conan gets a couple of wounds in the encounter phase? He is down even more dice when it comes time to do that adventure, which means that if he wants to complete the adventure, he's going to need more help from the other players. He has to use their dice, and they're going to score points per die that he chooses from them. That means they're going to be getting a lot of the victory points. But the other thing about this encounter track that is worth mentioning is for any player who has dice on the encounter track that matches these symbols, if those are symbols that are required for the encounter and they're on the encounter track, then they count as automatic successes if you leave them up there. So here we have, this is Conan's double warrior, and it's on the orange die. So if he's fighting corsairs here and he needs 2 warriors, this one die on the encounter track counts as 2 successes. So he is taking care of both of these results. He'll just need the other 2. So with fewer dice, it's sometimes not as bad because he still has some options. And if he has, let's say he's got 2 pirate fate tokens, well, then he knows he's definitely going to defeat these corsairs. And because if he doesn't roll the symbols that he needs, he can just use the fate tokens to change them to the symbols that he does need. And when you're picking your dice that you have to set aside because of how many foe dice are on the encounter track, you can change that for each encounter that you face. So this one, if Conan's got the automatic successes there with his orange die there, and he just needs to roll the pirate, well, the pirate symbol does not appear on any of his orange dice. So if he's got another one of these, this is the one he's probably going to want to set aside so that he can roll his other dice. And as you can see, it has a pirate symbol. In fact, it has 2. and it also has a wild. So he's got a 50-50 chance of getting a pirate on this, and if he's got 2 or more of those dice, he stands a pretty good chance of defeating this this card. And he may have rolled a pirate and put that on the encounter track as well. So that's also an automatic success for him. So even if the encounters are unlocked, it doesn't mean it's all bad news for Conan. And if Conan has an automatic success, he gets what he needs. He's going to get the reward here, which is he gets to advance on the pirate achievement track, and basically automatically. So it's a dual-edged sword, which is pretty on brand for anything Conan related. And that is how they work. So like I said, there's always going to be 3 of these face up. And there are ways for the players, especially the foes, to cycle out a card. So let's say that you've got, the Corsairs is up there. It's a port kingdom, but Conan is going to be, all of the adventures are, inland, and none of them are on the coast there. So it's very unlikely that Conan is going to be here. Well, if in the main phase, if the foe has rolled a sorcery symbol, which you have on this die here, one of the actions you can do with that is to discard one of these face-up cards. It's called cycling. It lets you draw 2 cards and then choose one of them to put in as a replacement. So it increases the likelihood that you will find an encounter card that Conan is going to face if you do unlock the encounters. So that's how they work. Hopefully that'll make sense. We're going to do a playthrough here pretty soon, so that everything will come together and you will have a much better and clearer picture of how this game works. But yeah, I think it's a lot of fun, but of course I'm biased, so I'm going to say that anyway. But I really like the artwork on these cards. Like I said, this is all from Dark Horse Comics. So it was a pleasure flipping through issue after issue after issue and finding things and saying, oh yeah, we got to have a demon fiend in one of these encounters. Or, of course, a giant snake, which you can face in any kingdom that doesn't have the snowflake attribute. So that one is the opposite of the frost giant. Snakes don't really like the cold that much, so they're going to be in all the other kingdoms, but they won't be up in the north so much where the frost giants like to hang out. So let me know if you have any questions about the encounter cards or how the encounter phase itself works. I'll be happy to answer those. And like I said, we'll get some more in-depth actual play of the game pretty soon, and you'll have a much clearer idea of how it works. That's it for this one, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.